you for this honor. Volume doesn't necessarily speak to the um, it doesn't speak to the level of honor that I take for this to end this out. And the reason being, and Jim, you can attest to this because this is when I met you. Um, I met Jim, who had some time here in Detroit, in New Orleans. And this year that we came together into a space was a bit of a. It was an issue. There was tension. Um, and for me personally, the tension arose because this was my first experience with slow food. And I came down into New Orleans, a food city, and I'm a chef, and this was a brilliant moment for me. And from the moment that I came into the slow food space, there was an issue. And um, and it hurt me because I came into a black food town and I came into what expected to be a black food experience, and I wound up experiencing something that was less than that. Um, when we got to meet chapter representatives, my food experience had always been based on justice. And my food experience had always been based on doing what's right for the community. And I met a woman, my Catherine and myself, Catherine Lynch Underwood. We met a woman. She was telling us that their chapter is not very diverse, but it's fun. And then I looked at the leadership that was down there. None of those folks looked like me. We came together for slow food in New Orleans, and the slow food that came to New Orleans didn't look like the black folks in New Orleans. It didn't look like anything that I had known. And what was sold to me, and not in any kind of negative way, because Catherine told me this is a wonderful thing, and I believed it and understood it. But when we got down there, here inside of what I thought would be a black space in terms of food, it was not that. I was actually told to sit down and shut up. I was in a space where folks that worked for the organization were quieted. I was in a space where folks said, well, we need more people of color, but how do we do it? And at the end of the day, there was a lot of strife and conflict inside of slow food. And I thought it kind of needed to be addressed. And Catherine and I talked about this. And what came out of the conversations is that we talk about the same things, but we talk about them in different terms. And what immediately came to my mind was the song "You Say Tomato, I Say Tomato," and it's the same thing, but how it relates to us as people, individuals, family members, community members, folks inside of different systems, we say a lot of things differently about the same items. And so, how do we create diversity? How do we make slow food more diverse? And here in the United States, more specifically, diverse in terms of what slow food looks like. Is it a foodie organization or is it good, clean, fair food? Is it joy and justice? And so those kinds of questions came up. And so, how do we get to a point where we can put diversity inside of slow food? And some of it is just bringing people around the table. Let's have some of these conversations. Let's talk. And one of the things that we came up with inside of Detroit, Slow Food Detroit, is a meal shared is a story told. And so we really just need to find out what makes us similar. And so you say tomato, I say tomato. I say tomato, you say tomato. It is one ingredient. So some understanding comes from how do we treat this single ingredient? How do we take this ingredient and make it our own? And by telling the story about how we make it our own, we can actually come together and actually build diversity inside of slow food. Slow food can only succeed and grow and be better if there's diversity. And we know this because our lands don't develop and build without diversity. Our soil doesn't grow better without diversity. We know that we need to have grasslands. We know we need to have forest lands. Know we need to have beaches and pools and lakes and shores, and they're all different. But the only way that we as people survive is through diversity. And the only way that slow food can survive is through diversity. So the issue is that Carlo Petrini saw that there's a food issue here. McDonald's is coming into Rome, a place where we know pasta, sauces, and all these things, but now a burger is going to be its moniker. So slow food is preserving things. And how do you preserve things? That we need to make these stories important. So the only way that we can survive is through diversity. So we need to talk to one another. So this whole concept of diversity dinners came about. We took tomatoes because of the song, but they're all over the world. We had a bunch of tomato tastings in terms of the one event. We tasted different types of tomatoes. We took and made them sauces. But the real magic happened when people made their ethnic dishes and they used tomatoes the way that they used them and they told us stories about them. And then we can relate to one another. And that was the magic of all this. So diversity is created by talking about commonality. And tomatoes was a great point. So I'm looking at time. That is the basis in the whole genesis of you say tomato, I say tomato. Because we as an organization can only survive through diversity. Biodiversity is the only way that life moves forward because we only can move forward if we can only get all of the things that we need. And so slow food cannot ever be a foodie organization here in the United States ever again to survive. It needs to go forward with the initial mission. So this is what these dinners are about, bringing people together, talking about the same ingredient, but in different ways. And so this is what this is about today. And what we would like to have happen is just a conversation between Anna and Jim. And I'm going to start cooking. And Jim was there when I was first introduced to slow food. And he was in the room when these things came up. And I would like for Jim and Anna to talk about where slow food was because there has been a genesis. There has been a growth and a movement forward. But I'd like to talk about where it came from. And Anna would I would love to hear about where it can go. And while that's going on, I was breaking every now and then to cook a little bit because what we're going to do is we're going to make the autumn tomato bisque and I'll start that right now, and then I'll let these two good folks start talking. So you have the recipes, and we're gonna sweat out some vegetables, and we'll go from there. But I would really love for Anna and Jim to join in and tell me who you are, and tell everyone, because I know everyone knows who you are. But this is chat, because we're not a big group, but this is chat.
Wonderful. And you want to begin?
Jim, I would love for you to begin as the elder statesman here.
Okay. Well, of course, I'm sitting here at the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains, and our water source here is the Kentucky River. And of course, the food comes from all the soil and the limestone that's heavy in the soils here. And we're in the original home region of several indigenous people. It includes the Shawnee and the Chickasaw and the Weechee and the so forth. Anyway, so just recognizing that that prior to African and European settlement, however we came here, the indigenous people were a very diverse people, okay, with various languages and all kinds of cosmology systems throughout Turtle Island. And they had been caretakers for some 10, 20, 30,000 years of this tremendous biodiversity in what we now call USA, North America, Turtle Island. So that means that was the foundation of the country, this tremendous diversity of indigenous peoples, as well as this tremendous diversity of what we tend to call biodiversity and streams and rivers and creeks and that great diversity of waterways and mountains and so forth. So that means that Slow Food USA as an organization and as a movement is inheriting this tremendous foundation. And the way to honor this heritage that exists here prior to our coming is to take these principles of good, clean, and fair, and to say unequivocally, collectively, absolutely, that the highest expression of good, clean, and fair is embedded in what we're calling now equity, inclusion, and justice. So it becomes a question of, as an organization, as a movement, do we want to, present ourselves as a mediocre expression of good, clean, and fair, or do we want to present ourselves wherever we are in the country with the highest expression of good, clean, and fair? And if we want to do that,
so can I do this, Jim?
Yes.
I want to ask you this question. I want to ask this question, brother, because the day that I met you was on the floor when good, clean, and fair was an issue for Slow Food. Have you seen transition or growth since then? We're talking about 8 years now. Have you seen growth or transition? And not to put Anna on the spot, because that's not what this intent is. What can be growth and transition moving from there? And then also, I'm going to pop in with a cooking lesson if I will be so indulged, because I got some people that want to make this soup. So I'm just going to step in here for 1 minute, and I'm gonna make some soup. So I think Charity's got her ingredients there, right?
Yeah, Mike's working away.
Okay, so I'm getting ready to get some aromatics going here, and I know we're talking good high level stuff, but isn't food high level too? So
absolutely.
I'm gonna get some olive oil going, and I'm gonna get our aromatics going, because if you can see here, we have the
Oh my goodness.
onions, the leeks, the carrots, and the celery, and this is our mirepoix. And mirepoix is just, as I think I'm speaking to the choir, so I don't really need to go into that. Onions, carrots, and celery, gonna give it a little bit of a seasoning to bring out some of the liquid. But Anna, and I know I have you at a disadvantage, but can you speak to race and food inside of just your personal philosophy? Let's just take it outside of slow food. It's you. What I'd love to
Sure.
hear from you.
Yeah, well, actually, my background is in ethnomusicology and folklore and journalism. It's all about telling the stories of many different cultures, and that's the way I approach all of this. And learning about studying kind of ethnography. It's the approach is really about trying to understand as much as possible other people's perspectives on things, right? And trying to get outside your own bias and your own opinions and trying to expand that and open it up. And so I think when it comes to food, that's a really critical piece in terms of how we approach race in slow food and in food, is just to not assume that our way, our beliefs are the only beliefs that are out there, and to work actively to expand our understanding of how food operates. I mean, I've learned a lot over my 4 years with slow food so far in terms of the complexities of food and how food is tied into labor rights and food justice, and food is integral in so many parts of the race, Black Lives Matter, and every, starting, as you said, Phil, from the beginning with the kind of Carlo Petrini's revolution there. Food was central to that revolution. And so I think that as we go, my focus has been to build trust with the network, to get outside of the white Brooklyn city perspective that I come from, and to try to understand what's happening around the country, to try to understand what's happening in other communities, and to not put my priorities on those other communities, but to focus on what's going on with them and to support and come alongside that. That's where I'm coming
Well,
from. And I think it's been, I can't speak for the network, obviously, but my hope and my perspective is that the national office historically has had quite a lot of distrust from the network in terms of, I think historically people were upset with the national office, didn't like the direction, blah, blah, blah. There was a lot of miscommunication. I think that's better. I'm not positive, but I hope that's better. And I hope that, yeah.
I'm gonna break in. I'm gonna
Please.
break in. I'm gonna come in.
Go ahead.
It has definitely improved. We have a long way to go, and it wasn't my intent to put you on the spot, but I am gonna relieve you from the spot for just a moment, because we're sauteing vegetables and we're making a soup base here. And so what I'm doing is I'm actually taking our mirepoix, which is our base of our soup. It's gonna add our foundational flavors in here. And I don't know if you can see it really well in this, but I've got them going here. I'm gonna switch up pots. We don't put in garlic, which I have already done here. We don't put it in really at the beginning because we don't want it to burn. And so we're gonna put it in now. We've had our vegetables going here. We added salt because salt is actually gonna bring out some of the liquids. And the biggest thing is wherever there's water, there is actually no flavor, because water is flavorless, odorless, etc., etc. And so we're going to try to eliminate some of that. So,
But can I take that
And that's
analogy then and kind of say, maybe that's where we are right now. We're kind of like at the foundational level of our cooking, right? In terms of
exactly.
EIJ,
Yeah,
right?
we're
Like we
making
kind of
soup.
have some foundations. We have the EIJ manifesto, gym and charity. Like there's been a lot of work put into that. But I would just call it a
Yeah,
foundation. I wouldn't say like we've made it or we're done or anything like that. I think there's a lot of soup still to cook here.
exactly. And that's a beautiful, beautiful place for us to be in terms of this conversation. And that's the intent of you say. We're actually trying to build out what a real foundation of our real world is. Our organizations don't look like any of us. And to be honest with you, slow food does not look like us here in the United States. And that's just my personal opinion. But Slow Food International looks like Slow Food International, but not necessarily in all the spaces of influence. And I think it is a wonderful thing that the next person in line potentially is Eddie Mukibi, who does a wonderful job representing slow food here internationally. But realistically, the thing that I think that needs to be made an issue is that Carlo Petrini in Italy had the same issues that we have here in the United States. Jim, could you speak to that for us?
Absolutely. Yes. I would say, first of all, you had a question earlier about if we have seen some improvement or enhancement around the question of diversity within Slow Food USA. I would say yes. When I joined the organization back in 2008, it's been like 12 years ago, we didn't, I think, have from the national leadership, whether it's the person who is the CEO or executive director, or whether it's within the board or the national staff, we didn't have this really strong sense of commitment to. We didn't have a strong sense of letters being sent out, emails being sent out, statements, email presence, our website presence, and so forth from what I would call the national leadership, which means then that we didn't have that quite the same from whether it's regional governors or even from some of the local chapters. I think now we have what we've been seeking, okay, for some years, 12 years, these are on my behalf, this strong commitment, strong statements of circling this idea of equity, inclusion, and justice within the framework as the foundation of Slow Food USA. And as you were saying, Phil, within the USA, we have here in the USA people I would project from almost every other country in the world that's right here in North America, in Turtle Island, in the USA. So what that means is that, again, the idea of how do we magnify this sense of who we are as slow food members, slow food advocates. It means that we are to reflect, as you say, how the USA looks demographically, ethnically, age-wise, and all the other areas, okay, of diversity. But like you were saying, Phil, that we met in New Orleans. It's a good example, okay? So jazz came out of New Orleans and is oftentimes regarded as America's only true art form. Why was it possible? Because of the great diversity in New Orleans that came together. We had the African rhythms and polyrhythms and drums from the African continent. We had the European marching band and bass drums and things like that. We had the indigenous music from so many years. We had the French, we had the Spanish. And within all of that milieu of this tremendous diversity, we were able to give birth to this art form that we now call jazz. That's the potential that we have within Slow Food, is to create these wonderful, dynamic, transformative relationships that can then truly help us to transform like the global, industrialized, racialized, chemicalized food system. So, and yes, you're right.
Isn't that beautiful? Isn't
Yeah,
that
I'm thinking,
beautiful?
yeah, I mean, when I go around and I work, whether it's in Detroit, and I was in Detroit with all the various communities in Detroit, I've come to Kentucky. I'm working with the traditional European and African American communities. I'm working with people who are from the Congo recently, people who are here from, say, South Korea, other parts of Asia, China, the Americas, Mexico, Cuba, and wow, I mean, it's such a wonderful, such a wonderful experience to live, as you were saying, Phil, to live when you are living your life as a justice pollinator, as a justice advocate, as a justice, someone who's committed to it. Then you're allowed all these wonderful, dynamic, diverse experiences. That's what I'm saying, ought to be part of our something that we're trying to strive for, is those kinds of experiences that can then have us involved in all these different struggles, whether it's around the questions of justice for farm workers, other food workers, meat packing workers, service workers, chefs, diversifying all these various platforms of food and ag. So
Yeah, okay, Jim, I'm gonna break in one quick
go ahead,
second
man. Go
because
ahead.
I think Charity needs to go on to our next step here.
That's right.
Where are we
Charity, I
at,
don't see you
Charity?
moving very much. Oh, the mic's clicking.
Sous chef
Okay.
is at work. Yeah.
I'm sorry if the continuity of the recipe portion of this didn't translate, but we've already been sauteing off our celery, onions, and leeks, building our foundation. We have our spice packet here, our turmeric, our pepper flakes, our dried basil, our fresh thyme. We need to get all of that into the pot. I want to hear some questions because I know that we haven't been on the same schedule. So who needs to catch up? Where are we? Because I think we should have
Chef,
most of our stuff sauteed.
just so you know, you probably don't see the chat box here, but Molly from Chicago said that she is making a tomato cocktail same time here. So we have a complimentary.
Oh, wow.
Great.
And she put the recipe
great.
in here, the slow tomato cocktail.
That is exactly what this is about, because our catchphrase here in Detroit is a story. I'm sorry, a meal shared is a story told. And so if you can share that recipe, what you're doing, it actually shares your personal story. So what we're actually trying to accomplish here today with this autumn tomato bisque is a story of actually Detroit. And it's the story about slow food, seed saving, and the biggest thing is the Cherokee purple tomato. That is at the center of the recipe. And here in Detroit, as far as slow food goes, we actually have a success story. Keep Growing Detroit has 1,600 registered gardens here in the city. And of these registered gardens, all of these 1,600 registered gardens, they get purple Cherokee tomatoes. Or Cherokee purple, sorry. I keep mixing that up. But that's a slow food initiative that is being seen in real time. Not necessarily started, but certainly supported by. And this is how we move our food forward. We make it accessible. We make something that people can eat and enjoy and have for a good meal. And it's easy to do. We can actually grow these things. We grow them here in Michigan, but Michigan, we're lucky because we're actually the second most agriculturally diverse state in the United States. So we have a different terroir that worked for a lot of folks. And if I could reach out, I know Charity was cooking along with us. Charity, are you there?
Mike says he just put the tomatoes in.
Okay, so what we're gonna have happen, and one of the things that's really needs to be understood, all of our tomatoes are different. So my Cherokee purple is gonna grow different than your Cherokee purple. And so sometimes the water content is gonna be a little bit different. So what we're looking for is we're looking for this to start thickening up. And you got your vegetables in there, and oh wow, I didn't put garlic in, but you can do that now. And I would hope that it'll be a local garlic because it does mention it in the recipe, and that is one of the things I do is just leave stuff out, and you can just
There's
figure it out.
garlic in here, chef. Just says 2 cloves garlic minced.
It does. Okay.
Yep.
Well, I'm sorry. I guess I sent you the right version. But we're gonna keep stirring the bottom. Not gonna let it get stuck at the bottom because there's a lot of sugar inside of these tomatoes. And if you grew them well and they did what they were supposed to do, it's gonna get sticky. But Anna, I want to ask you this because I've actually I didn't realize it disappeared. I've actually been around since you've become the leader and our leader. I'm gonna give you your due and everything, but Anna, I've been very impressed with what you bring to the table, and I would like for you to maybe just address diversity in from your lens, fearless leader. Go ahead.
Thanks, Phil. Well, maybe I'll keep your analogy going here because I think as we build the foundation, we also need some of the spices. And I think that's what makes slow food really interesting, right? If we start with that solid foundation, we believe in EIJ and diversity, but then we got to spice it up a little bit, people. We gotta do some things that break the tradition. We gotta break the traditional, cheese and wine events and start to spice it up with some other kinds of things that engage and pull in other people. So I think when I look at Slow Food International, thinking about Terra Madre, right? That's all in our minds because last I don't know, on my Facebook, it's coming like 2 years ago. This happened. You see it there. You see the passion come out and the really unusual projects happening. The whole section about indigenous peoples, the section about migrant workers. I feel like as a global network, there's the spices there, right? There's these really interesting projects that pull people in, and it's not about like a white-led project for Black communities or a white-led project for white communities. It's like Black-led project for Black communities or like indigenous project for indigenous. Like, I think it's a little more internal, and we need to figure out a way to support that kind of work and to partner with those people and to make it a little spicier, a little more a little edgier. I think we got to add some salt and some turmeric and some thyme and garlic. And I got to
go ahead. When you start talking seasonings, I jump in. Sorry.
Am I taking the analogy too far?
No, you engaged me.
So I mean, those things all cost money, right? And I think I hate to bring it back to money, but I really do think that's a serious weakness of slow food right now is, I mean, I love that it's a volunteer network, but I think because of that, we tend to to have a majority white network. And I think we need to think really seriously about how we can pay people, and not because, I don't know, and not in any weird way. I think volunteers, it's great. It's wonderful to have volunteers, but if we really want to get some interesting spices in our mix, we have to I think the analogy is breaking down right here.
No, it's not
Stop.
because Anna, I
I don't want
hate
to say we have to
volunteers.
pay. You
I,
can
I
go
don't
first.
I
Yeah.
hate volunteers. Volunteers are the most horrific beast in the entire world because they all have value. And so when you volunteer, shouldn't the thing that you give your volunteerism to pay you back?
Yeah.
And because the only reason it does, not the only reason, but one of the very big reasons is that we don't have responsibility if we're just giving our time.
Mhm.
Do we give
Yeah.
ourselves is what's the big question. And so volunteerism is a wonderful thing. But I want to bring this back to Jim before we go back to soup. So one of the things that's going to happen with your soup is that you got your vegetable stuff in there. Charity, catch up with me. Tell me where you're at.
I think, where are we, Mike?
It's cooking.
It's cooking.
It's cooking. So you've got your tomatoes in there, you've got your onions, you got your celery, you got that base stuff in there, and it should be all pretty soft. Um, Most of you all should have your vegetable broth in there, and one of the things that you're going to look for, and Lord, I have no idea how. Stay here. I'm going to figure out how to show you. Just give me 1 second. Okay.
I'm jealous of the smell, Charity and Chef, that you
Yeah.
must be experiencing.
Yeah.
I had a,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
great.
That'll be in the next version of Zoom.
So, well,
Oh,
ooh.
yes. Now we got it.
So
Oh yeah.
Yes.
you can see steam. Anything else? I'm pouring soup on my computer, so I'm not going to do that.
No, don't do that.
But we're going to want to make sure that it has a certain thickness to it, and we're going to make it a little thicker and keep cooking it down. And when this gets to the point where it's too thick, then we're going to add in our coconut milk and finish it. And I don't want to keep us going on forever, but I'm going to finish this version of it here for me, and I'll taste it. But I would really like for a couple minutes, just, and I don't want it to be anybody but Anna and Jim. Couple minutes, just a back and forth, because I came in to Slow Food with Jim, and I didn't know he had some Detroit roots. But since then, my life inside of Slow Food has transformed with Anna. I'd like just a couple of my friends just have a couple of moments, and we'll finish the soup up when they get done.
Okay, go ahead, Anna. If you want.
Why don't you go, Jim? I feel like I've been dominating, talking a little.
No, it's been fair. Come on,
Okay.
just give both of you.
Okay. Well, I do want to just add a quick story, if I can, about Phil.
Yeah.
We were like hotel mates in Torino. I don't know, maybe 2010 or 2012, and then we would USA delegation. We would all leave in the morning and go over to Lingato and experience Terra Madra, and then we would come back in the evening. And Phil would come back with about 10 to 15 bags of stuff, because he was out shopping a good part of the day at all the small markets and everywhere, and within all the Terra Madre locations and different countries. And he would come back with this tremendous spread of all kinds of, talk about diversity of things to drink, diversity of meats, cheeses, samplings, and it would be maybe 20 of us, 30 of us around this table, and Phil was giving us the background to all these wonderful foodstuffs. So I'm just saying we've had so many wonderful experiences together, and I just love your spirit, and this is like a fun webinar here. Now, what I do want to say is that I think that Slow Food as an organization has, in my view, has not come out with this strong position around justice. Maybe we used years ago with Slow Food, or maybe another one of my affiliations, the idea of being a Jedi warrior, the idea of justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. But I think that we have to, the whole question now with our wristbands of joy and justice, but these things are interlinked, that if you really truly want to feel joy as a person in the USA, then justice has to be joined like at the hip, that the intent of the country's spirit has been about justice. It hasn't been fulfilled. So Slow Food is in position to take a leadership role within the nation, and Slow Food internationally can take, as it has already, a leadership role internationally. This question of justice. So I would say that, and we can approach justice again in the question of diversity, because there's all kinds of ways to intersect.
Yep. Did we go away there, Jim? We might have had an issue there. Anna, can you just fill in for us? And before you do that, actually, what I'll say is that I'm not necessarily sure I've been a good instructor in terms of the cooking, but I think I've done halfway decent job in terms of the conversation. But we should have a relatively thickened soup. If not, then you can keep cooking it down and adjust your flavors. But we're gonna start blending it up, and I'm gonna do that kind of quietly. Hopefully we can get Jim back on here. But one of the things that we're trying to do is just make a smooth soup. And so you can see here, I'm grinding it. And we're gonna make it smooth.
Like Jim is back. Hey, Jim.
Oh, you go ahead, Anna.
Okay. Here we go.
Oh,
Okay, but
Chef Brenda is raising her hand. I don't know, Brenda, if that means you want
Yes.
to.
Come on, Brenda. Ask us questions. I'll take any questions right now. Anna, can you facilitate that?
Yeah, go ahead, Brenda.
Make it happen.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for having this amazing event as a culmination of our time together this last month for all the organizers and the strong equity focus. I love it as our culminating event. The Sacramento chapter is excitedly going through, a process of understanding how we can be relevant in this changing world, and we've been feeling that we can definitely do a better job in serving the good, clean, and fair aspects and of all our partners. So we distributed a chapter survey and a member survey on all our social media and our newsletters, and this is what I wanted to share. Was one of the questions we asked was very straight up in the survey: how well, or do you have an understanding of our commitment to the EIJ principles? And it scored really high. And so it was like people had an understanding of that. So even in our struggles to be present in the community and to understand this new reality of the international versus slow food versus how do we embrace EIJ more, and the community model and all of this, all the changing dynamics, somehow, some way, through our actions or words or our presence, we're still able to communicate to the community that the commitment to EIJ is front and center. So it was a really surprising element of the survey response. I was expecting that we just get wrapped over the knuckles like, huh, you haven't been there for us. You know, you
Mhm.
have a long ways to go, as we know we do. But somehow, some way, and it's you know, a big kudos to the tools that the national chapter provides to us to be able to message this story well, to our own outgoing chapter chair Kanoke and all of the leaders in the leadership before him, including Jarity and all of the other regional governors and chairs that we've had that have been sounding this horn for a long time, that even with all the struggles and the COVID and the who are we and all of these conversations that we're having organizationally, somehow our commitment to justice has still come through. So there is still a place for slow food in this conversation across the country. And as much as, you know, the navel gazing that we do at our shortcomings, I think somehow, some way, probably through the miracle of the message of food, as Phil just as it was just expressed, you know, to share food is to share a story. Probably simply through that act alone of giving has elevated that slow food is committed to EIJ, you know, and I just wanted to share that and pass it along. And thank you so much for this culminating event that is really having this conversation.
Thank you, Brenda. That's really good to hear. I've been thinking, you know, one of my struggles from the national level is that I have like no control over the local chapters. I can lead, I can suggest, I can encourage, but when it comes down to it, I don't have the control to manage what the message the local chapters are saying, your leadership. And so it's really great to hear that that you're doing the work there. And I think it's testament to, you know, we don't have to be perfect. We do have to be humble and say we're working on it. I think that's key. And just like, we just try to do better, just do better every year, you know, and people see that. But thanks for sharing this. Good to hear.
One more thing I'll add, and it's something I shared to
Perfect.
a couple of folks over email, is, you know, in our efforts to be better humans, is the cautionary note of not to be in search of a problem. We have a solution, so let's find a problem. You know, I think that to the degree that communities of color have been probably addressing everything that Slow Food USA is trying to address for decades, if not centuries. You know, we don't have to be everything to all people. The organization doesn't have to be in every place and solve all problems, and try to have this, you know, tension of how can we remake ourselves and be there. Maybe the solution is right in front of us, which is just elevate what's already in our communities higher. And it doesn't have to mean that we're centric to that and be you know, oh, we need a community model because we want to bring everyone in. Well, maybe the solution is let's be there for them. You know, let's be everywhere in the community. We don't have to bring everyone into us that we haven't been able to tap into. Maybe we just need to show up and be present. So it's just a cautionary note to, you know, we don't have to have, you know, show up with a solution in search of a problem. The solutions are in the neighborhoods already, as is demonstrated, you know, through all of the amazing conversations that we've had over the last month.
I think that's great, Brenda. And Chef Phil, we lost your video. I just want to make sure you're still there. You're just a black. There you are. Okay, just checking. How's your soup coming, Chef? We can't hear you.
I'm sorry. I thought I was talking to you. I'm in good shape here. How's everyone else's soup coming? Because you can actually adjust the thickness as to the amount that you cook it down. And so right now, my batch,
Mm.
I'm liking it, but I'm a little biased because my tomatoes are actually my tomatoes. And so I'm a little spoiled because I grew these. Um, well, that's my soup. But that is exactly what what Slow Foods is about. We did the seed saving thing this year, and the majority of my soup, the tomatoes that I use are the Cherokee Purples. I have some white peach in there. I have some Moneymaker, and I think I have an Amish paste in this batch. But I grew that. We made our own food, and excuse me, it was smelling good. I had to have some, but we made our own food, and one of the things that I think is important with slow food is that everyone needs to make their own food. Doesn't necessarily mean to grow it. Doesn't necessarily mean that you've got to create it, farm it, or whatever. But you have to make your own food, and you make your own food by making the decisions that you do. Where do you get it from? Who grew it? Why did they grow it? How did they grow it? And all those things that are really important. But that's what slow food is. We need to make our own food. And we need to make sure that the folks that we love and care about make our own food, make their own food too. And so good, clean, and fair actually takes energy from folks that can facilitate that. And so we have a responsibility in all this. So I have the luxury of being able to grow food, but a lot of folks don't. And we need to be able to people growing their own food. And so we really need to work on ourselves to create better capacity for our lives so more people can depend on us. Sorry, we have to create more work for ourselves. I don't like it, but that's what we have to do. Um, and Anna, I will turn this over to you. And I hope that we understand that some of the stuff we can grow in our yards is good. I hope that we understand that diversity is good. I hope that we understand we need each other. And food needs to be based on us needing each other. And so with that, I turn it over to our leader. Thank you,
Thank
Anna.
you, Chef. Thank you, Chef. This has been a really wonderful session. Unlike any other, I love pulling the analogy from making soup and diversity and how we need land biodiversity to how we need human anthro-diversity as well. Before I wrap, maybe Jim, you got cut off before, so I want to throw the mic back your way.
Yes, Anna, when we had our EIJ webinar several weeks ago that Charity and I were kind of part of, we went to the breakout sessions with those fewer people. I kind of heard people who were still struggling with what to do locally. Yes, they were signed, you all get, your 6 steps in and you all adopt the manifesto and all that. But I heard people who were still struggling with what to do locally. I want to give just a few examples of things that people can tie into, I think, wherever you are. I do a lot of work around what's called now therapeutic horticulture and restorative justice. I have, since I came back from Detroit, I have focused a lot of my work on with women, especially women at risk, because as we know in the family, it's women who by and large are buying the food, preparing the food, cooking the food, and providing for young people a kind of an experience around food. So I have spent a lot of time working with here in Lexington and in Detroit, the high school for teen moms, which typically in most communities, there's a high school where teen mothers go and their kids in a nursery or preschool. And we go there and we do gardening, cooking classes, nutrition for the young moms and their children. Okay, as we did when we were in Detroit. Also work with women who are
Catherine Ferguson.
yeah, exactly, Catherine Ferguson. We also work with women who are experiencing domestic violence, and we have that program has blown to where the women now run a farm and they're got 6 or 8 high tunnels of flour CSA. They're entrepreneurs. They're making soap, lip balms, and things like that. Women who are healing from drug and alcohol addiction. Women who are experiencing homelessness. We have a program for veterans that, as we know, one of the ways to help women and men who come back from wars and military duty to heal from what's called PTSD is get them in the soil, on a farm, in a garden, as therapeutic horticulture. We work with the local judicial system, the family court judge. We've had this drug court garden for kids and adults who are in drug court as a community service project. The judge comes out, she takes off her black robe, literally, puts on her jeans, puts down the hammer in the judge's chamber, what it was called, and she picks up a garden trowel and she works in this garden with the kids and adults. Okay, so these are just we also work with the county detention center, the jails, both county and state penitentiary. Again, trying to stop the revolving door of so many people. Could be a grandfather, his son, and his grandson, all locked up at the same time here in Kentucky. So we do a whole effort with again different people who are locked up when they come out as well. So there are all kind of opportunities. We work with different immigrant communities who come here recently, whether you're from Bhutan, Yemen, Mexico, Korea, Congo, whatever. So there are all kinds of examples of work we can be doing that's also fun work. It's delicious work. It's joyful, but it's also about justice. It's trying to create a different experience for people here in our various communities where they can enjoy as well this fulfillment, okay, of what America can provide. So I'm saying, so if you need other ideas, I can give you a whole list of people to contact, whether it's, I know we've done a lot of work around school gardens. That's great, okay? I've done a bunch of them, but there are other people who really need our time, our input, who are trying to heal from various trauma. And I think that it's important that we, as an organization, at least for me it is, in my work locally, is to have a particular sense of focus on women. Because when women heal, children heal, the community heals. When women heal, and when women know more about gardening, in no way, I'm saying it's in no way discounting men, in no way. But when women heal, then the children heal, the communities heal, and we are able then to create a renewed great remembering of our closeness to the soil, the closeness to growing food. I'm looking here now out of my car window. I won't show it to you. There's the full moon. Okay. So we do things again with these various groups of women, many of them young women, where we're out at nighttime and we're in the garden and we're talking about this connection that women have with the moon and the stars and cosmos, and we have some really wonderful experiences. So I just encourage people to reach out, connect with people across our communities. And by this time next year, we ought to be able to have a similar kind of a gathering where people aren't just saying, I'm having a hard time connecting. They can come here and say, hallelujah, I'm working, I'm excited, I'm doing all these wonderful things, connecting with all these people in my community. We need that kind of excitement, that kind of joy of knowing that we're providing this information, this global sense of network, but we're helping people who have some real problems and some real issues of trying to heal. As women, as people heal, then they can become advocates, activists, slow fooders with this sense of local and global sense of connection. Those are my words, Anna.
Can I
Love
just
that.
jump in? Yeah, I just want to jump in for just one moment because I think I need to transition from where this originally came from, because you say came from Jim. He doesn't know it, but I was there, and he gave me the strength to figure that out. And Anna, I've seen your work, so if you just indulge me, and I'll transition to you, and you can close us out. But you say has the potential, if we allow it as an organization, for us to make the connections between our women and us men and our situation. Oh,
Oh, oh no. That looked like, oh, my battery just died. Well, let me just continue that thought, and Jim, I really like what you say here. I mean, your words are so powerful. And I think what I've seen in the slow food community is a lot of silos, a lot of individual chapters keeping in their own lane. And this even, there's a comment on the Facebook group, like, this seems like another lane. Like, why are we talking about justice? That's not our lane. And I think the work ahead of us is to get in other people's lanes and to understand how food fits in and to get out of our silos so that we can start to see the intersectionality of food between, I love what you say, Jim, about food and prisons, food and the justice system, food and women, and food and children. We've done a lot of things with food and children, but like, how can we go beyond that to another level and really working in communities and even within each other? I think within the Slow Food Network, there's a lot of, oh, Charity, that looks amazing. Awesome. Within our network, right, this has been part of a lot of our work with Felix, especially, like, how can we know each other and get out of just your one chapter lane, but like reach across the state border to see what Tennessee is doing from Kentucky. Like, New York should know the people in New Hampshire. Florida should know the people in Alabama. And I, coming off the debate last night, I just feel like our country is in such a divisive, incredibly explosively divisive year, 4 years, I don't know. And I feel like food has a place there to bridge out of silos and to unite around flavor and deliciousness, but not to the exclusion of justice, and to bring that piece along with the flavor and deliciousness. So Phil, where are you? This is where I think Chef Phil's analogy here is so amazing, that he's using it to show how we can all come together in this very fragrant way. Charity, you should take a bite for all of us now.
Yes, absolutely.
Do it.
Anna, this is Jerry.
Drum roll. Thumbs up from Charity. Jerry. Ooh.
I'll take her name. Wish I had her wisdom. At the last Slow Food Nation, we were passing around the pin that said, "Slow food, here there is common ground." I was hoping maybe that would catch a slogan as a slogan for us, but People wore them with pride, but food is where common ground is for a lot of us.
Definitely. Yeah. And I think it has long been that, but I think the challenge is to go beyond just enjoying food and to pull in that justice component of it, or to get outside of just the enjoying food to really having a more
Wow.
intersectional idea of what food means in communities and how we can use the common ground of food to reach other people and to engage in different kinds of conversations.
That's what it was supposed to mean.
Yeah. Anyone else want to jump in? I mean, we can wrap up pretty soon. It's 8:45 Eastern, but oh, there's Phil. Great.
This is Brenda from Sacramento. I wanted to share I've mostly been seeing it on Facebook, but it's in a woman and her family in Mexico, and they share a lot of recipes and stories, and it's called De mi rancho a tu cocina, from my ranch to your kitchen. And I'll try to see if I can find a way to get the hyperlink into the chat. And those are the kinds of stories that I love. And in addition to all the other stories that I've heard this last month and this week, and it's just farmer rancher sharing stories around an open fire hearth, De mi rancho a tu cocina. And I think on YouTube, she posts on YouTube a lot, and I see it on Facebook. And they've got the YouTube Award of the Year, one of the whatever cachet that has. But the stories and the way she tells them are just so earnest and real. I'd invite everyone to check it out. I think it's something that storytelling and food aspect is something that Slow Food USA does really, really well. And whenever I see her videos, I think of Slow Food a lot. And conversely, they translate well, in my mind. And I invite everyone to check that out too.
I love that. I put the link in there, Brenda. I didn't know about that before, so thank you for sharing. Phil, it looks like your computer battery died, I'm guessing, but we see you back again. Oh, you're muted.
I am back. I'm in a bunch of different worlds, so none of my batteries last as long as I do. Sorry about that.
Before we wrap up, I also wanted to give a shout out to my team. Dan Mueller is here on this call, and she has been instrumental in pulling this whole Leader Summit together and has been like a real sounding board and thinking through how we curate the Leader Summit and what kinds of sessions are helpful for chapter leaders. She worked closely with the network committee to put the programming together. So Dan, thank you so much for helping us out here.
My pleasure. It's been great to get to know so many of you and connect with you over more than just email. So I've learned a lot and I'm really grateful for the opportunity to connect with you all and absorb some of your wisdom.
And of course, Giselle and Felix were also a big part of my team. My team has splintered from New York City. So we're like no longer, we're actually California dominant, Pacific Coast dominant now. Giselle's in,
very appropriate. You're
yeah.
out here.
Giselle's up in Oregon and Felix just moved to San Francisco. I'm still holding it down in Brooklyn, but yeah, I really love my team right now, and I hope that folks can reach out to them and get some feedback. Dan this afternoon put together a survey. Dan, I can't find. Can you find the link, Dan?
I have the link right here.
Okay. Yeah, could you throw that in? We'll send this out in an email too, but we're really eager to get your feedback on the Leader Summit. Of course, we love positive feedback, but we want to know how we can make it better too. So this is something we want to do again. I think it worked well. So if you could fill that out, that'd be really helpful for us. But Chef Phil, thank you so much for leading this very unusual and delightful session. I wish I was sitting down at the table with you right now to enjoy that soup, but I'm glad some of you are, Charity and Molly.
Molly, how did
Amazing.
your soup turn out?
Oh, wow.
Mm,
Yeah, let's see how it went. I'm gonna,
beautiful.
hey, hold on 1 second, honey. Can you do me a favor? Can you grab me a bowl and just hand it to me? Make my kitchen here because I think I need to share. But it is something that we as a community can keep on doing.
Yeah.
You say is a way to bring people together, and this is about diversity. And I'm gonna be, yeah. Here, I don't have a label. I have this really weird instrument called a Danish dough hook that I've fallen in love with, but you can't spoon anything out with it. So my wife is trying to share that with me right now. But we think of ourselves as disparate units of folks that are out here trying to actually survive on our own. And we're not. We share a lot of things in common. We share food in common, we share stories in common. And one of the things that we try to stress here in Detroit is a meal shared is a story told. And commonality is what's going to actually make us move forward, not commonality of every piece of it, but commonality that is enough for us to understand that we're not so damn different. We come from different places. Our stories have variations, and they're wonderful and they're beautiful, and we need to embrace that. But we also need for each of us to encourage us, courage to embrace our local food, embrace the people that are closest to us, embrace our terroir, and embrace all the things that make us better than what we were yesterday. And what we all have that in common. And that's what we need to use food as our common trait that comes together. Not the flavors, but the origin stories, the the brilliance of building and beauty in terms of encouraging positive systems. We don't do that now. And so that was the genesis for You Say. And realistically, Anna, you weren't there, but Jim saw it. We were a fractured organization. We don't have that same fracture that we had. We still need some improvement, but we were a fractured organization. And anywhere in anybody's world that a woman will tell me, or a man, or tell me from some place down in the South to sit down and shut up, which is what happened inside of a slow food event, then we needed some changes. We need changes where we can say we're not very diverse, but we're fun. We need change where we can understand that joy and justice doesn't just exist inside of Africa and other countries, that we have the same commitment to Carlo Petrini's vision. And it has to be American. And I say American as in US because I'm not going to be so insensitive to understand what America really is. But the US, we need to not be so damn we're arrogant here. And what we need to bring slow food into our cities, into our communities, and into our hearts. And it needs to look a little bit different than it has been. And that's what You Say was about. And I really, truly appreciate, Anna, you giving Detroit the opportunity to talk about You Say. because diversity is important to these kind of operations, these kind of organizations. And I think that you all are better knowing us. And I'm not trying to be arrogant, but I think that the world that we have is much better with people of color, people of texture, and texture means people of depth and understanding. And we need all of that as a part of Slow Food US. And Anna, I support every damn thing you've done because it's been brilliant. And let's make it keep moving forward. Keep Jim pushing us, supporting us. Charity, EIG, make it happen. All of you all, Dan, leadership. Felix ain't here, but you know, Giselle, everyone has done a brilliant job, and we need to keep moving it forward. And it doesn't take away from what Slow Food was, but I truly believe we're in a better place today. And let's move forward together.
Amen. I feel like that's a great sermon, a great way to end it. Thank you, Chef.
Sorry.
No, I love it. I feel like COVID has forced us in some ways to shift more rapidly than we would have before. So I think this is a moment to, as Jim says, put the snail on the skateboard and try some new things. I think we should close up here, but this has been a really nice way to end it. I want to give a shout out to some of you folks who have been like on every session. I think Joel and Charity maybe have been on every session. Yes? No? Okay. Amazing. That's impressive. That's really impressive. Paula is another one. I think she left early, but.
And Julie, I think you've on quite a few as well.
Yeah.
I feel like I am seeing you quite a bit.
So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Dan, especially Chef, and Jim. Thank you, Joel. He's still our board chair. We were talking earlier today, but I think this has been a really nice way to end this Leader Summit, and with some delicious soup in our bellies and some fun work ahead. So,
and may I say this? I just had to add this. Our soup was made from like tomatoes out of our garden, and I'm just really, really impressed. But I just had to add that in. I just had a chance to taste it, and I'm not the most professional gardener, but I'm happy.
Beautiful.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much, everyone. We will be in touch. Keep up the good work.
Love y'all.
And, yeah,
Love everyone.
love you too.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Great sessions.
Joel.
Yes, lovely.
Thank you.
Lovely.